The book, A Song for Zipporah, written by David Harris, is a powerful historical fiction centering around the life and character of Moses' future wife Zipporah before they met. Book author David Harris brings the reader into the relationship between Moses and Zipporah, which was gradual and lush. The story unfolds beautifully when Moses finally asks Zipporah to marry him. Purchase your copy of the book detailing this authentic story, A Song for Zipporah.
At Wings of Transformation Publishing, we are committed to helping our authors reach their goals and pursue their dreams of becoming published authors. We work closely with each author to ensure a successful publishing experience, and we are dedicated to helping them tell their stories in the most meaningful and impactful ways. We look forward to putting you on the path to writing your book.
Good morning, and good afternoon. I want to thank you guys for tuning in for another episode of the Free Texas Campaign, Voices from Behind the Walls of TDCJ. Of course, I am Queen Angela, and I want to thank you guys that have been sharing these videos, sharing these clips, sharing these reels. We're definitely trying to bring awareness to things that is taking place within the TDCJ facilities, what's going on in the state of Texas, period. I tell you, corruption has truly taken over. Those that do not know, I am in school working on my master's degree. I just did a presentation on the corruption within the parole board in the state of Texas, and y'all will not believe I made an A on that presentation. So evidently something that I'm doing is right, something that I'm doing right. But I just wanted to throw that out there, y'all. But there's so much going on within TDCJ, and I'm allowing these individuals to come on, share their story, share whatever it is that is laid on their heart, whatever they want to bring to your attention. So that we'll know what's going on, because if we don't hear it from them, we're just getting what people are telling us. But I want to hear it straight from the inmates, because the directors, executive directors, the ombudsman, all these people can tell you what they think you want to hear to make it okay. But I want to hear the truth, and I want to hear it straight from the horse's mouth. I don't want the he say, she say. I want it straight from them. So that's why I do what I do. So if y'all would, please share this in your circle of influence, because you never know who may need this, who may have a family member that may be in these similar situations, or you never know where you may find yourself in a situation like this, and you'll know how to prepare yourself and how to handle yourself. So without further ado, I'm going to allow my guests to come up, because they know their time is limited, and I've already taken up 3 of his minutes. So I want him to come forth and allow him to share as he will. Mr. Michael.
Hello, everybody. This is a follow-up interview from last week's interview. Last week, I talked about judicial corruption in Texas. Now, I did not receive a fair trial due to inadequate representation, judicial misconduct, withholding evidence, and a lying district attorney that threatened my attorney repeatedly before my attorney was removed from my case against my will. A question asked at the end of the last interview was, what can people do on the outside to help my situation now after I've been in prison for 20 years? Besides making the public aware of the corruption and then attempting to hold the courts accountable, I really need an attorney. I ended up with a life sentence in prison because I could not afford an adequate attorney. After a good one was removed from my case, after 20 years behind the walls, I certainly can't afford an attorney, and I need one more than I ever did. It'd be great if I could get a pro bono attorney, but I've been writing letters for years asking for one, with no luck yet. Maybe one of those of you hearing my voice may be able to help me. If nothing else, I may need a fundraiser to pay the cost of a good attorney. People on the outside know more about these possibilities than I do. Either way, this week I want to talk about a variety of other topics. What I've experienced firsthand after being sentenced to life in prison by Williamson County, some inhumane things I have experienced, corruption corruption in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, the lack of rehabilitation in the TDCJ system, the flaws in the parole system, and some solutions to the problems. That's what's most important. That's a lot of ground to cover, so I'm just going to jump right in. The first thing that happened to me after being sentenced was in the middle of the night, an officer came to my cell and said, "You're on the chain. Let's go. Get your stuff. Hurry up. They're waiting for you to get on the bus." Another officer had arrived, and they both began to scream at me. I've been in segregation for 19 months now and was accustomed to being in a cell. I was so accustomed to being in that cell that it caught me off guard. These guys didn't give me a warning, time to prepare or pack my property. They just screamed at me. "Put everything in your bed sheet now. We will drag you out of the cell. Hurry up. Let's go now." So I moved as fast as I could. They put the cuffs on me, put shackles on me, and as I shuffled down the hall with all my property and wrapped in my bed sheet held in front of me, they continued to shout at me, "Hurry up. Come on. Don't make me drag you down this hall." We had to get in an elevator to get to the booking area, and the officers never stopped yelling at me until I reached the booking area to be processed out. Come to find out, after all of that drama, there was no hurry at all. I waited in the booking area for about 5 hours before being processed. When given my property to be transferred, I found out that a very special watch that I had been wearing when I was arrested had been stolen from my property. It was a Breitling chronograph. That would cost over $10,000 today. Evidently, one of the officers stole it. My mother tried to get Williamson County to locate it, but they lied like they do so well, and they told her that the officers had to cut it off my wrist when I was arrested. They said the watch was destroyed. This still did not explain why it was listed on my property inventory and was not accounted for. I should have filed charges, but was more concerned with my fresh life sentence in prison at the moment. Most people know the process arriving at prison, so I won't waste too much time explaining how degrading it is. The initial processing upon arrival was a traumatizing experience where everyone is lined up in rows in a very cold room. There were men in front of me, just out of reach, and men behind me of equal distance. We were screamed at and told to strip down naked immediately. Our clothes and shoes were taken before being commanded to lift our genitals, turn around, bend over, spread our butt cheeks. We were then herded into a community shower like cattle. Female officers were watching us shower, taking out our meat. Then we were given a pair of boxers and told to wait in a cage. The temperature was in the mid-50s. We waited in that cage with no other clothing for a couple of hours. I was so cold that my teeth were chattering. I was shaking all over involuntarily. Hours later, we were given socks, white pants, white shirt, and canvas shoes that didn't fit very well. Then we were given a bologna sandwich, peanut butter sandwich in a sack, and sent to our housing areas by a screaming sergeant. Every step of the way, we were screamed at like animals. My first trip to the chow hall, I was strip searched twice on the sidewalk before getting in the chow hall to eat. One was a male officer, and the second was a female officer, right out in front. After eating, I was stripped down again in front of other female officers. This was on the holiday unit. 2 weeks later, I was sent to the bird unit. This was just diagnostics. We were all immediately stripped naked in the cold again. Then we were given boxers to wait in the cage for hours before having our heads shaved. On the bird unit, there's also a large community shower where officers scream at you the whole time you shower. 21 days later, I was sent to the Darrington unit. Upon arrival, we exited the bus and were lined up in the parking lot. Windows of the prison were facing us on three sides. We were outside in the sunshine, stripped naked by female officers before sent into another cold room for hours. Then we were housed in the dirtiest little cells you could imagine. I don't know if I mentioned before, but none of the housing areas have air conditioning. Only the processing areas where the officers are posted. This was in August, so it was very hot in that little cell. I had no fan. Rats and roaches ran in and around my cell all night long. It was a nightmare scenario. I thought to myself that I'd rather be dead than spend the rest of my life like this. I was up all night fighting off roaches, spiders, and chasing rats out of the cell. The community shower at Darrington was twice the size of Bird, so around 100 men showered at once. Sexual predators were staring at other men while they showered. Some were masturbating. Others, only one officer screaming at us, but he couldn't see all that was going on because of a huge crowd of men of that size. I only stayed the weekend at Darrington, but it seemed like much longer. On Monday morning, I was sent to the McConnell unit in Beeville, Texas. My first cellmate was extremely psychotic. He was eventually locked up for hitting an officer that tried to stop him in a fight with another inmate. One big problem with two-man cells is that inmates who try to stay out of trouble are often housed with psychotic inmates that want to fight, smoke, drink, and do other drugs and masturbate all day long every day. They are disrespectful and dangerous. When inmates that try to stay out of trouble, like myself, try to get moved, the officers think it is funny. They refuse to move us to get away from the drugs, alcohol, and violence. We are forced to defend ourselves, and then we get in trouble when violence occurs, even though we went to ranking officers, making them aware of the problem before the violence even happened. It is entertainment to the officers. They want to see us get in a fight. They want to see who wins, and sometimes they even make bets on the outcome. The next problem is bogus cases. My first case was for refusing to turn out for work. This was about a year after getting to the McConnell unit. I was housed in a cell. The door never opened. I could not open it and did not know that I was even given a job. A sergeant came to my door to serve me a case, and I explained this to them. The case went through, and I was found guilty. How could I possibly be guilty when no one opened the door or told me to go to work? It would have been impossible for me to get out of that cell to go to work. Then in 2008, my next cellmate tried to escape while I was asleep in my bunk. I had no idea anything was going on. He was a gang member from El Salvador. I was a Christian who minded my own business. The night before, I had gone into my cell to find a 6'3" white guy on the top bunk, asleep. I knew my cellmate earlier that day was a short Hispanic, but it wasn't uncommon to get a new cellie on any given day. Whenever it happened, I didn't question it. I had no sense of it that. All I knew was that I was in my cell where I was supposed to be, and I went to sleep. ID cards were on the door, so when the officers counted, they gave them. Now, if the ID didn't match the man in the top bunk, that was the officer's problem and their job to find that problem, not mine. The next morning, we were woke up by officers screaming, "Get down on your knees, face the back of the cell, put your hands behind your back." Now, this was a strange way to wake up. Something was definitely wrong, but I had no idea what. I was cuffed, taken to medical in my boxer shorts, and then to lockup. I was locked in a small cage for 5 hours before anyone told me anything about why I was there. An hour in, I was forced to urinate out the side of the cage because no one would let me use the restroom. Urine hit the wall and ran back into the cage. So for 4 hours, I stood in my own urine because the cage was too narrow for me to sit down on the stool that was welded inside. After 5 hours, I was taken into a small room where a man from the Office of Inspector General questioned me. He could see that I had no idea why I was there. He told me that my cellmate was found in the dumpster out by the kitchen. The dumpster was on a truck trying to leave the unit. Count wasn't clear after breakfast, so they couldn't get out. This was all news to me. I was held in pre-hearing detention for 30 days before going to court. Then I was found guilty in a kangaroo court proceeding. The captain refused to read the evidence that I had typed up, refused to allow me to read the evidence on tape, and I was sentenced to 14 days solitary confinement. Then my line class was dropped. I was reclassified as a G5 from a G3 status. 760-something days of good time was taken, which really doesn't matter, but all of this for being in my bunk and sleep, minding my own business. They even tried to give me another major case for possession of a controlled substance, which was ibuprofen, prescribed by the unit medical personnel. All of this was eventually overturned because they knew I'd done nothing wrong, but it was a horrible experience. It put my family through a lot of stress. In addition, it caused a financial burden because my mother had to drive 3.5 hours to talk to me in a cage all shackled up. Then an attorney had to help get me out of this mess I was wrongfully convicted of, and my parents had to pay for it. I've been given at least 6 bogus cases in TDCJ by officers who targeted me for different reasons. Some because I was a Christian, some because of my race, and at least one because they were just having a bad day. I have always been very respectful to the staff and other inmates. I do not cause trouble when I mind my own business. Some people even hate me because I'm too quiet, don't like to talk. These are some of my first-hand experience. There are many others regarding discrimination, favoritism, harassment, retaliation, and denial of medical treatment since I've been in the system. But since our time is limited, I want to switch gears and discuss the lack of rehabilitation. First, and I want to discuss the flaws in the parole system too, and suggest some solutions. But first, on rehabilitation, many inmates desire to take classes for various reasons. Classes required for parole, self-development classes, vocational classes, and even college courses. However, they are put on waiting lists, some for 18 months or more before an opening is available. The inmate must be transferred to another unit, then they are transferred back after said class is complete. There are a lot of problems associated with the process I just described. The most obvious is that inmates are not afforded the opportunity to begin attending classes with positive change being the focus. Now let's face it, everyone needs positive change in their lives, especially men and women in prison. These inmates need help. They have reached out for help, and they are being denied that help for sometimes years at a time. Those in TDCJ administrative capacity claim this is due to budget concerns. I believe this is an excuse and is not valid. An excuse is merely a reason stuck with a lie. The reason I tell you this is because most classes today are facilitated by other inmates anyway. These classes could be facilitated by field ministers, peer educators, and life coaches on the unit the inmates are housed on. There are also outside volunteers who are constantly denied when they ask for the opportunity to come in and teach these classes. Not to mention that system-wide, TDCJ has issued tablets capable of handling interactive curriculum for college courses and positive development classes that don't require a physical teacher to be present. Currently, men and women placed on waiting lists for months have developed bad habits in prison. Some have joined gangs, indulged in drugs, alcohol, have become so depressed that they are not allowed to take classes, that they have even committed suicide. As I mentioned, some of these classes are required for parole. Parole have been granted with a condition of class completion. Some have to go so long to get in the class that they're released on parole is for a few months before discharging their sentence. This should never happen. It appears that the only reason that they are granted parole for a few months is to raise the number of inmates hold on electronic statistics to show the public. These things must change because society needs inmates to be rehabilitated before re-entering society. These inmates will be your neighbors someday. They need rehabilitation. It's in the public's best interest to make sure it happens. This brings me to the last topic. Parole system in TDCJ, on top of what I've just covered about parole, I know people that have been given a 1-year set-off for parole every year for decades now. How can this be justified when these individuals do not get in trouble? They work for the state with no wages 5 days a week. These guys don't even get good time applied to their sentence, bringing them closer to release. Well, maybe that's the answer right there. And let me explain. I also have known plenty of bad actors and individuals that are violent gang members who continually get into trouble. They've been on G4 minimum custody or G5 close custody for years at a time due to disciplinary problems for alcohol, drugs, and sexual misconduct cases within TDCJ. They finally get their custody level dropped before seeing parole for the first time and are released with an FI1. This is basically immediate release within 30 days. This happens in Texas all the time, and it appears that this is not a coincidence. Those individuals have done nothing positive in prison. They did not work for free to keep the incarceration machine running smoothly. In fact, they disrupted production. They weren't making the state money. They were costing the state money. So they were set free. If you want to go home in Texas, it looks like you have to behave like an animal, never be respectful, be a sexual predator, be violent, and get rewarded with parole. However, the guys who follow the rules and work for free have no choice but to stay for decades, being denied parole repeatedly. That that way they can make the state more money, make the machine run smoothly. The state does not want to let their good workers and good people out. Then the system wouldn't run so smoothly. And on top of this, the parole board knows that the bad actors will be right back, usually with a due case. That means more revenue for the counties and making recidivism rate statistics look bad to further the agenda of mass incarceration. It all boils down to one thing. It's all about money, money, money. The public is unaware, and they need to be educated to see the scheme at work. Maybe that is part of God's plan for me, to expose the corruption, educate the people, and bring about positive change in the state of Texas. Millions fall prey to the Texas judicial system. It could be you someday, and it needs to stop. Incarceration should only be for those who refuse to change and refuse to obey the laws in place. Another lie to be exposed is that Texas says I get good time and work time in prison. Although I do get a piece of paper that shows good time and work time calculated, it is meaningless. That piece of paper is called a time sheet. All of this information looks good on paper, but the time does not apply to my sentence. An aggravated sentence in Texas does not allow good time or work time to affect your parole eligibility or release date. It is a great deception. This also means that inmates with aggravated sentences have no incentive to practice good behavior or to work the jobs that TDCJ commands us to work for no pay. It should also be noted that no one in Texas has been sentenced to labor in the penitentiary for many decades, yet we are forced to work every day without pay. Here's another discrimination in the parole system. Remember, there's supposed to be equal protection under the law. Under earlier legislation, aggravated crimes served less time before parole eligibility. For example, a life sentence would only serve 12 years before parole eligibility. Now I have to serve 30 years for eligibility for the same crime and the same sentence. Some of the earlier guys are my neighbors and have been home and back to prison since I've been here. They were given a chance to go home but failed. Why shouldn't I be given a chance, at least one chance? Some of these men have returned multiple times on violations. Why should I have to serve over twice as many years as they do just to see parole? In addition, if my good time and work time counted, I would have seen parole over 5 years ago. As it stands, I still have over 9 years to even be eligible. Now, keep in mind, too, that eligibility does not mean that you're going to get parole. It just means that you're eligible to be reviewed. I propose some solutions for the parole system which start with a review of individuals on parole first. Some have been on parole for decades with no problems, no violations, and are clogging up the system. Now I'll tell you why. Another fact that the state of Texas doesn't want the public to know is that without a change in their lucrative system, they cannot grant anyone else parole. Only as many people who are discharged from parole each year can be put on parole each year. Without hiring additional parole officers, the existing officers' caseloads are full to capacity. Each officer is only allowed a certain number of parolees on their caseload at any given time. If Texas won't hire more parole officers due to the lack of funds or any other lie they tell the people, the only solution is to discharge existing parolees who are trouble-free. Many parolees today have been on parole for years, and they only report every 90 days, some 180 days, some even yearly, and they do so by phone only. They don't even go into the office to report. So why are these individuals even on parole when they're sought to be filled by someone who needs to be on parole? Once this problem is addressed and space is available, criteria for release on parole should be scrutinized. Individuals in prison for the first time who have been incarcerated for decades without problems or disciplinary history should be considered for parole immediately. Not to mention individuals who have been set off for parole multiple times with no disciplinary problems. People are set off repeatedly for reasons like nature of crime. The nature of the crime will never change, so that is not an excuse to continually set them off. People change every day, some for the better, some for the worse, but their records will reflect their behavior. behavior. I believe that individuals who refuse to follow the rules, to obey the law, and who are violent and who act like sexual predators belong in prison. I'm sure you'll agree. So keep them in prison. But people that exhibit positive behavior and positive changes should be given a chance to re-enter society, to be productive members of society, and to provide for their families, which need them home. They can be on parole. They can pay for their own classes, pay their taxes, and the taxpayers won't have to pay for them. They won't be a burden upon the state. They should be given these opportunities while they are still at an age for that to be physically possible. In short, let the good people move and hold on to the bad ones. That is what prisons are supposed to be for. It is not rocket science. It should be a simple process. This is what was put on my heart to share with you today. Thank you for listening, and God bless you.
Wow. For sharing. I tell you, I just did a paper on corruption in the parole board. I actually had to do a 5-minute presentation, and I tell you, I didn't think I was going to do good on it because my actual paper was 10 pages, and I had to cut it down to 5 minutes. You go from 10 pages to 5 minutes because it's a lot. It's a lot to cover, and to have to cover it in 5 minutes. Like, I had to state the problem, then I had to address the problem, provide a solution, then do a plan of action. Man, I mean, 5 minutes, but I got an A. Man, I got an A. Like, I got an A. But people really need to understand this, and people need to know this, because there's so many people. Like, first, corruption has caused a lot of you guys to be in there, yet some of y'all may have done your crime or whatever, but the sentences that they given you guys and how they got you guys there were wrong and was corrupted, and some of you guys should be home. If we were in other states, a lot of you guys wouldn't even be in prison. You would have had time served. You would have whatever. You would probably be on probation or whatever, but you would be home, able to pay your fines, able to pay restitution, able to be there with your family. And I don't get the state of Texas. I just don't get them. I don't get how they think that ruining lives is doing anything. Now, imagine, just imagine a state that has been corrupt for decades, and then you have judges that will constantly write off your complaints and write off your judgments and write off your lawsuits and hold it, and then they're denied, and then they won't send you the stuff. So I've been doing some research, been Googling, been trying to find out, is that common in Texas? And yes, it's common in Texas. It has become a common thing. But y'all, we gonna have another individual. Y'all, share these videos. This was Mr. Mike. He's in McConnell. Share these videos, because individuals need to hear this. They need to hear what's going on inside of TDCJ. We have 2 more interviews. Every Monday we do this. We give them an opportunity to be their own voice. They have the opportunity to share. So representative, the governor, everybody that have the authority and the power to do something can hear this from them. They're not hearing it from us. They're hearing it from them. Because when you hear it from the third parties and the in-between people, the story ain't the same. Like, I got a total different story from some administrative people when I'm getting a different story from the inmates. So who's telling the truth? All of the inmates are not going to be lying when they're not even in the same place. So we got to make this make sense. And right now, the administrators are not making it make sense. The correction officers are not making it make sense. The inmates have proof. The inmates are proving time after time after time after time that these people are abusive and they're abusing their power. Y'all, something got to change. And if the governor can't do what he need to do as the governor and make sure that these things stop and that these prisons are doing what they're supposed to be doing, then the Department of Justice need to come in. The FBI need to come in. They need to come in and do and take over and get these places back in order, because a lot of these places are run down. They should be closed. They're not fit to. They're not fit for animals. So why would you even have humans there? We're not even going to talk about the food. And we know that the food, we know what's been going on with the food, because we've had visits where food had to be destroyed and thrown out. So we're not even going to talk about the food, but at least they are addressing the food issue. But when are we going to start providing the wholesome food that they say they're supposed to be providing? The vegetables, the fruit, the fresh vegetables, the fresh fruit, food that look like food that you would serve your family, food that's pleasing. No, we don't want you to come with the luxury. We don't want you to come with all that, but I done worked in the prison system, and you serve what you would have, what you would be eating. Y'all, look, I got to get ready for my next interview. Please share this out. Go over, make sure that you're following the YouTube. Make sure that you're following the Free Texas Campaign page. Make sure I'm waiting for I'm waiting on this permit. The city of San Antonio is taking forever. I don't know what's going on. Even if it's pushed back, I'm coming. I'm gonna do the rally. I'm gonna do the march. I'm gonna do the community event. It's gonna happen. Even if it has to be pushed back, it's gonna happen. Know that I'm coming, because I'm not letting it go. So all these representatives that's liking and sharing and thumbs up and hugs and caring, we need you to do this. We need you to really, truly stand up and be a voice. You're an elected official. The citizens have elected you. The citizens have asked you to be a voice for them, and yet you're failing. Right? We need change, and we need to change some decades ago, because you got everybody that I'm interviewing, y'all, it's not 5, 10, 15 years. Y'all, these people have spent decades in prison. You talk about 2 decades, 3 decades. You got one that's been in there 40 years. Y'all, how? Why can't these people come home? Like, what is the likelihood of these people offending again? They've been locked up 20, 30, 40 years. Some of these people just want to live the rest of the little life that they have left. You're talking about people that's in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. What are they going to do? Really, what are they going to do? That's what we need to talk about. Really, what are they going to do? We need to start a campaign to get these elderly, older people out of prison in the state of Texas. If they over 50, they need to be on their way home, and they need to be working on a program. If they got to individualize them a program to get them home, they need to individualize them a program to get them home. And if they don't have, look, I'm ready to volunteer my services. If you don't have what you need to do what you need to put these programs in place, look, I'm here. I'm willing to volunteer my services. I'm willing to come on board to do whatever. Yeah, it's time out. It's time out for people not doing their job. We got elected officials that need to be opening their mouth and talking and allowing these bills to pass that would bring some of these people home. Greg Abbott, you are one of them. You keep vetoing bills for what? And you have the power to make an executive order to address the overcrowding in the understaffed, yet alone the food. Like, for real, do your job. That's how we asking. Are we asking you to also is to make sure that the laws are being observed, and that these people are being accountable? Like these lawyers, these judges, these judges cannot be sitting on these people's papers. These judges cannot be holding stuff and then sending it back when they want to send it back when it's time for it to expire. You can't do that. That's a violation of these inmates' rights. There's a lot of stuff going on that we don't even know going on. We got to be more proactive. We got to be on top of this stuff, and we got to see it before it happens, because they doing stuff right up under our nose, and they doing it in plain sight. Because they hoping that we not gonna catch on to it. They hoping that we not gonna see them do it. Y'all, it's time out for that. And it ain't about no race thing either. It ain't just about, because I'm seeing more and more. I'm seeing more and more. It's about a money thing and about power. If you don't have money and power, you in trouble. You in trouble. You in trouble. Especially in the state of Texas. Y'all, it's time for change. Y'all got to get out of here, because I got another interview at 11:45. I'm sorry, at 12:45, which will be 11:45 y'all time, 12:45 our time. But y'all share this out, and if you are an organization or a elected official and you're willing to sit down and talk with us and help us to figure out how can we help get these inmates home, how can we help change, get these prisons turned around in the state of Texas, the living conditions, the food. Y'all, it's a lot that can be done. These inmates don't want to live in slums. These inmates don't want to be in, they want to keep their facilities clean. Look, inmates will write me and ask me to contact people because they won't let them get cleaning supplies. They won't let them mop. They won't let them do this. Like, why won't you let these people clean up? They want to be clean. So we need people that care. Like, the food. Like, it's just a lot. But I gotta go. Y'all, thank y'all. Please share this out. And y'all have a great day. If y'all can, jump on to the next one. I'm gonna be hanging around to probably about 1:55, which is 12:55 y'all time, 1:55 my time. I have actually two more. Again, thank you guys, and share this out.